This is the Extra Point Podcast from Arizona's family.
So I'm never getting excited for anything again, ever. Maybe like grandkids. Maybe my kids' graduation. Wedding anniversaries. But yeah, Kevin Durant's not coming to Phoenix. Espo, welcome back to the podcast. I don't know. I don't even know how to describe my emotions. I'm sad. I'm upset. I'm let down. I'm not excited. How is your glass case of emotions right now?
I would describe it as being an Arizona sports fan. That's how I would describe it. It encapsulates it. How are we not used to this by now? It's happened so many times. I full well expect it now in terms of everything, every last thing. I mean, this is just like when we heard Peyton Manning was coming to the Cardinals, or if you go this far back, Joe Montana was coming to the Cardinals before he went to the Chiefs. Like we've seen this play out before, and we're right where we always wind up.
Oh, we have the video of Joe Montana almost coming to the Cardinals. I think he was just playing the Chiefs, trying to show he had no intention of coming to the Cardinals, but it was a media circus. Were you in Arizona? Do you remember those news reports?
Oh, yeah. No, I completely remember it. And you get your hopes up so high, especially back then as a Cardinals fan where you hadn't seen any success. And you're like, oh, it's the corpse of one of the greatest quarterbacks ever. We can wind up having him in Arizona. Yes, please. And look, it's a tale as old as time. And Arizona sports fans continue to relive it over and over and over again.
And the worst part is now I've been in Arizona since 2006, but then Joe Montana signs with the Chiefs and he goes and hands the Houston Oilers the knockout blow, and the team moves to Tennessee, and there went all of my allegiances to NFL teams. So thank you, Joe Montana. I wanted to believe this was going to happen. I wanted to believe. I still kind of believe he's coming to Phoenix. Am I crazy?
Yes, but I don't know that it's because of that, Mark. But we all wanted to believe it. In the end, that's what everybody wants, is that shiny new thing, that exciting player to come to town, that person that could put them over the top finally after 50 plus years of, pardon the pun, but wandering the desert in terms of trying to find that championship. And in the end, I think he's too nice to do what was necessary to get him to Phoenix. If he had sat down in a meeting with Joe Tsai and that front office and said, I will not report, I will sit out, and the only place I'll go play is Phoenix, he's probably a Sun. But KD decided to go the polite nuclear option and say, well, if you fire those guys, maybe I'll come back. The door was always open for him to go back, especially once Kyrie decided he was going to play there again. I think this is a one-year experiment in Brooklyn. Either they find success or we go through this whole dog and pony show again next offseason where KD wants out of Brooklyn and tries to find a new home.
Well, I can't figure out why LeBron then signed up for 2 years if he clearly wants to play with Bronny when he comes out, because you would think LeBron signing up for 2 years would get the domino to fall, Kyrie to Los Angeles. And then why would Kevin Durant need to be in Brooklyn? So none of this worked out like I had hoped. How close do you feel like it got at some points for all of it to go down?
Look, I don't think it ever got extremely close, because we've heard reports that Mikal Bridges was never actually offered in a deal, that they hadn't talked in weeks as part of it. I think this was always the Nets were going to ask for so much that if somebody met their unrealistic expectation, they'd actually deal KD. But I think they had a good feeling that they were going to wind up right where we wound up, that KD would back off of it eventually if Kyrie stayed, and that they'd figure it out along the way. And that's where we are. And I think that was the end game that the Nets had always hoped for.
Who's got a bigger cleanup job to take care of now? The Brooklyn Nets or the Phoenix Suns come training camp?
Oh, I think it's the Nets. I mean, the Nets had all the drama. The Suns, look, I think this may have been the worst thing that could have happened to the Suns this offseason, because it got the fan base's hopes so high for something that may not have ever been truly realistic. And in reality, there was one really bad game last year, right?
Yeah.
That seventh game against the Mavs. And it was catastrophically bad. It was about as bad as anything could go, but it was one game. This team was the best team in the NBA. They set a franchise record with 64 wins. They had an MVP candidate in Devin Booker, and you could argue through half the season they had two MVP candidates with Chris Paul in that conversation. All is not lost. The sky is not falling. The Suns are still a top 4 team in the Western Conference, and we still have 5 weeks for them potentially to make additional deals to bolster the bench at a backup point guard or a backup power forward spot. It's all about perspective here. Would KD have been nice? Yeah, it's an all-time great. But this team is still good enough to compete. And with some other changes, either now or before the deadline, they're good enough to compete for an NBA championship. Sure, the window is slowly closing if it's all predicated on CP3, but I don't think it is. It's predicated on Devin Booker, the development of DeAndre Ayton, Mikal Bridges, and Cam Johnson. This team is very, very good still, and fans need to keep that in perspective.
How much collateral damage, though, do you feel like was done from the loss to Dallas, the way that went down, the loss in the finals, and now basically telling anybody who's not Chris Paul and Devin Booker, yeah, you're replaceable?
I mean, that's the league. That's the business. Everybody knows it. And I think Mikal Bridges handled it exactly the way that you would hope. He laughed a lot of it off. He made fun of it on Twitter. I mean, that's the attitude that you want. These guys realize it. I think there's a quick way to repair, any hard feelings that Cam Johnson had. Give him an extension, which he's up for. I think that's an easy way to fill that. And if it's team friendly, he still could be moved in the future if you decide to go that way. DeAndre Ayton got the bag. He got the max he was looking for. That should solve any issue that he had. The only guy that I look at, Jake Crowder, may be one guy that feelings are a little bruised. And my guess is Cam Johnson's going to start over him anyways, and he's an expiring. So maybe you move off of that. But overall, this team has had a solid locker room, has had good camaraderie, and one bad day at the office doesn't destroy that necessarily. And DA, if there's ever a guy that seems like he could kind of shrug his shoulders and move past something like yelling at your coach on the sideline, it's a guy like that. He's got such a good attitude about things that I don't think that's going to be an issue. And the Suns put him in the video unveiling the classic purple sunburst jerseys. I don't think you do that if there's some major contention with a player that, it could be problematic.
By the way, long time overdue. How I love those jerseys. Why in the world did they get rid of them in the first place?
Well, bad decision-making back in the early 2000s. They went from the best, most unique uniforms in the league to the most bland, boring, ridiculous uniforms that they wore from that early 2000s through the 7 seconds or less. I never understood why they went that way, and they've been trying to find something that captured fans' imaginations as much as that. Since they made that decision, the Valley jerseys were very close, but this is still one of the most iconic uniforms in NBA history. I applaud the marketing team and the equipment management group over there for deciding to go back to this, even though it's for 1 year, but it's for a great celebration of the 92-93 team, which was, for a lot of us, that team that helped you fall in love with the Suns here in the Valley.
Right, and I feel like that this team, people have fallen in love with them, but there's going to need to be, some more dating, some more sort of courting a little bit to get that buy-in that we had coming out of COVID with the Lakers here. How much would you like to blame me for getting everybody excited? I'm willing to take the blame for whatever my part is in that.
I like to blame you for as much as possible, Mark, because that means I don't have to look in the mirror and blame myself. Look, we're all culpable. Fans, media, Kevin Durant probably is the most culpable because he's the guy that demanded the trade and said, Phoenix is at the top of my list. So why don't we all just blame KD? put the frustration and anger there, and we can all try to move on through these 5 stages of grief that are coming up inevitably.
And while we're blaming him, I would also like to thank him for the content that he helped a 30-minute sports show have in the month of July in the desert. So
we Daily Sun shows where we talk plenty about Kevin Durant on our side of things too. So thanks for helping us get through. Now I got to figure out the next 5 weeks of content at least. You got football. I still got to talk Suns. So
all right, so tell us what you're doing. You got a new studio, you got a new setup, and as you come rocketing into 2022, 2023 here, glasses forward, how are we looking?
Yeah, well, let's be clear. This isn't the new studio behind me. This is my office in the building. But we got some exciting new studios we're going to unveil over the next couple of weeks here at PHNX. We're going to continue to do daily live shows covering all the sports. In particular, on the Suns show, we got some big guests coming up. We're going to take a look at some of the people that helped the Suns go from those dark days to where we are now, kind of the unsung heroes, if you will. That's a bad pun for you. But good. We're going to be looking at that, and just excited to keep this thing rolling into year 2. We crossed the year mark here at PHNX at the beginning of September, and we couldn't do it without the support of guys like you and the fans out there.
Oh, wow. That's a huge thing here in this media landscape to make it a year. So the Extra Point's coming up on a year, and we appreciate all your time here. And we need to get you a deal for those glasses. So I don't know who out there is listening, but we need to get those things named, imaged, and likeness. Is
from your lips to whoever can get it done and make me some money.
All right. Well, thanks for the time. Make this guy some money and check him out at PHNX. The Extra Point Podcast is a production of 3TV, CBS5, and azfamily.com in Phoenix, Arizona.